Good morning, gamers. I am Sophie Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another Project What writing vlog. Yesterday, as of filming this, I finished the revisions for the rest of Project What. Finished reading through it, finished doing my notes, my annotations, etc. We are officially in rework and replot mode. I have until this Saturday, because this Saturday is a 10K day, to finish the... You know what? Don't mind my cat. She's playing with a plastic bag right now. Don't worry about her. I have until Saturday to finish my rework, so this Saturday I can actually draft for the 10K day. Today's Tuesday, by the way, so I have a fair amount of time. I haven't done a ton yet. I literally finished the revisions yesterday, so there wasn't a ton of, time between the two. Yesterday, though, I did start making the scene list for the rest of the book. Spreadsheets are the best, especially for like replotting and stuff like this, where a lot of stuff is gonna stay. So I'm making a sort of like master scene list for myself as a reference so I can start the reworks. There's a lot of stuff that I need to streamline and make sure I have down before I start draft 4, just to make sure that there's no repetition in what we're seeing or how the character's feeling or like conclusions that they come to. I also need to fix the timeline because it's all over the place right now. And there's going to be some reshuffling of things just to make things hit a little more emotionally. So that's what we're going to be starting today. I don't know how far we're going to get today, but we do have until the end of the week. So we're just gonna get started. I'm gonna go to 2 coffee shops today, I think. At the first one, I want to just finish putting the scene list down. I only got like 8 chapters into the scene list last night before I was like, ooh, I should probably go to sleep. So there is still a fair amount of scenes to be added to the list. So at the first place I go to, I want to finish that. And then at the second place I go to, I want to actually start putting in my revision notes into the spreadsheet and like actually start figuring out what I need to change. We're ready to go. I just need to pack up and then we can head out. Let's do it. I just finished the rough outline. My hair looks crazy. Oh my god. Why is it always windy out when I want to film? I'll talk when I get back to my apartment. Okay, I'm back in my apartment. Probably a surprise. I know my hair looks crazy, like out of place right now and like asymmetrical and weird. I will be remedying that in like 2 minutes. You might be wondering, why am I home and not at the second location? Well, one, I got to the first coffee shop and realized I had forgotten my laptop charger. So that wasn't gonna work. And then I was like, okay, I'll just come back here, pick up my laptop charger, and then head out to the next location. And then I realized I kind of don't want to walk in the heat. So I have decided to just stay home the rest of the day. I did finish the like scene list. There's like 80 scenes. There's like 80 scenes in Act 2 and like 30 in Act 3, which was funny. There's 46 scenes in Act 1, 79 in Act 2, and like 26 or 27 in Act 3. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy like numbers there. Yeah, I got that all typed up. I got a couple notes typed up like from revision just so I wouldn't forget them. But the next step is to go through this scene by scene list and figure out what's staying, what's moving, what's getting cut, what's getting reworked and replotted like within the scene, all that fun stuff. But I do want to wash my hair real quick because it looks crazy. It looks insane. So I'll be back with wet hair. Stinky baby. Stinky baby. Oh, so cute. Oh, sleepy. My lunch before we get back to work. I'm so excited for this. I haven't eaten yet today. Ah. Also, that's gochujang. It's in the dressing I made. Okay, it's not like I didn't just like throw a bunch of seasonings on top of this. Okay, it's a dressing. I swear. All right, we are back. I have eaten food. My hair is still very wet, so I can like barely see the camera right now. But that's fine. It will dry up in time. It's hot enough around here. It'll get done. But anyways, it's time to get back to work. I already said I finished the scene list, so now it is just time to fill in all of the extra boxes and try and flesh this out a little bit. Most of this that I'm going to be doing right now is going to be just compiling all of my notes from previously, like during revision, and just making sure I have all the information in one place, because that'll make things a lot easier for me. Should I have done this when I was revising? Maybe. That's fine. I have it all together now. We're just gonna put it all in here, and then the reworking can actually begin. I might print this out. I might print it out once I have everything all together to get a bigger picture of everything, but I don't know yet. Let's just jump into it. Let's see what's happening. My only problem is on the screen, having to scroll back and forth and like I can't see the whole thing all together is what messes me up when reworking things. So that's why I like to print things out a lot, is because if you print out the spreadsheet, it's all on one sheet of paper instead of like you have to zoom out on your screen and then like you can't even read what you wrote. Like there's a method to the madness a little bit, but we will see how I feel once I put all these notes in. I did try to put all the notes that I had in here in the spreadsheet already. Like I put like there's little pages that I've attached with paper clips. I tried to put all of that information into the spreadsheet already so I don't have to go look for it. But I do want to add my revision notes in this cute little notebook. I want to focus on it. Cute little notebook. There's not a ton. I just have this much of notes. I also have the reworking main ideas for myself, so I'll keep an eye on those. We'll talk about those once I actually start reworking, but I do have a couple of things that like I really need to hunker down on and fix. But let's get going. Let's put all this stuff in the spreadsheet. Okay, I've put in all of my notes. Very cute, very fun. Act 2 and Act 3, and I want to just copy and paste this into a Google Doc so I can see the word count. Because I don't think you can see the word count here, can you? I will be counting these words in the summer retreat like spreadsheet. These words are counting. Okay, 15 pages on a Google Doc, that's crazy. Oh, I froze it. Oh no. Ooh, wait. I broke Google Docs. Okay, there we go. See? Hey, okay, cool. 3,296 words. Okay, I guess we'll keep working now. Can you hear my laptop? This poor thing. Well, I'm about to put it through a lot more. Let's get back to work. Welcome to my office. You can't even see the table. There's a table. I put a table on my chair, okay? That was the joke. Anyways, hi. Well, welcome to my office. Trying something different because I want to sit somewhere different than I usually do, because I feel like I've been working at my desk and my kitchen table a lot, and I kind of just want like a change in scenery, a change in environment slightly, without having to go out to a coffee shop and pay for a $7 coffee. It is Wednesday. It's Wednesday, it's like 5 p.m, not gonna lie. Oh no, I left my phone over there. No, it's fine. And I spent Today mostly working, you know, and then yesterday I spent most of the day working on a couple other videos. I started the Project Chosen video. Hopefully that's out by the time this one's out. And I'm also working on a poetry sort of, not experiment, lesson. I'm trying to learn how to write better poetry because I'm not very good at writing poetry. Doing a little video about that. So yesterday, in lieu of working on Project What, still I worked on those two videos. But now we're back in my office, sure. And we're gonna get going. I have my tools right here. Do you guys see I was watching Curtis. Earlier today, I finished the spreadsheet, which I have since printed out. This has all the information, relevant information from my reread and from the draft itself, so I can get to replotting with just the stuff that like actually needs help, which I did want to chat about. I need to get back up so I can get that notebook. Oh no. And I grab my phone. We are up. Here she is. Let's see what's going on. There are two different pages. One where I was in the thick of Act 2 and I was like, okay, let me write all these things down that I'm thinking about so I don't forget them. Without getting like too into like details of the book, a lot of things have to do with streamlining what the characters know at certain points. When I was rereading the draft, I found that the characters' ideas towards the enemy and the mystery they're trying to solve is kind of wishy-washy. It kind of goes back and forth, or it feels like it kind of goes back and forth. It might just not have like a super strong backbone, which is what I want to work on. When I was reading it, it kind of just felt like the characters were going back and forth between like thinking this group is like super threatening and scary to them being like, oh no, they're cowards, they wouldn't do anything. So I definitely need to fix that. Give us a clean through line for the entire book. Then another thing, there were a couple relationship arcs I needed to work on that I don't think are displayed well enough to warrant the emotions that we see in the book. All of the big emotions we feel, especially towards the end of Act 2, don't feel very earned. They don't feel warranted. It's like, why are you crashing out? Like, this makes no sense. And another thing that really doesn't feel earned yet are the relationship beats that a few pairs of characters go through towards the end of the book. Like, I love them. I love those scenes. Once I can work up to them, those scenes are gonna be pretty much unchanged for the most part, but the problem is working up to those scenes and showing that like these characters have earned these emotions that we can feel them too. There is one major character that I really need to work on. Well, major. She's slightly a major character. She becomes a big player at the end of Act 2. At the end of Act 2 and in the beginning parts of Act 3, she's a big part of the story, and she doesn't really feel like she's that big of a part of the story. Is that English? She doesn't feel that significant, and she needs to feel significant. Yeah. So I need to work on her. She needs to be convincing, she needs to be an ally of the main characters, and we need to see that she's genuine. We need to see that she is for the main characters, because she's a member of the enemy group. She's technically a member of the enemy group. I don't have a full backstory on her, but she's like someone who's grown up in the group. She didn't join on her own. This is kind of just the only life she's ever known, and she's like, I kind of don't like it here. I need to show that like even though she is the enemy or a part of the enemy, that she does want to help. She does want to be there. There are a couple things that are like island wide that need to be shown more. I mean, the whole thing is like the main characters are trying to stop this group from taking over the island. And throughout the story, there are things that influence the entire island, and we don't see much of that until like past the midpoint. And it's like, we really need to build on this way before that. That's another thing that needs to be like streamlined, understood, and completely clear to me, so I can sprinkle it into the book and show that the island slowly is changing because of what's happening in the book. Besides that, there's going to be some rearranging to really make the emotions stick. That's something that I think will help. I don't feel like the events that are happening, or at least the order of the events, are compounding for my characters. It just feels like a stream of events happening, and like, yeah, things get worse, we can see things get worse, but it's not getting as bad as it should. Yeah. And with a reordering and a reorder of what information we know as the book goes on, I think it will hit that worst as it should. So that's a major thing. That's a thing I really want to work on, especially with the printed out spreadsheet, is I want to figure out a rough estimation of where plot points are going to be now in the timeline. That's another thing I need to figure out. The actual physical, like, year to day timeline. At least, like, roughly. Doesn't have to be like, oh, this was on June 2nd or something, but I need to figure out the months and stuff that everything takes place in, because weather and seasons are always very big in my writing. I like writing it, obviously. I put it in everything, but it's not accurate right now. We go from winter at the end of Act 1, and then like 2 chapters into Act 2 it's already summertime, or like it might even be like autumn. So gotta fix that. Gotta fix that bad and understand where we are in the timeline at each point. So when I'm rewriting, I can delete those sensory details and rewrite them to be accurate. I'm already projecting that this is going to be a very detailed outline. So anyways, we're gonna get started. I turned my air off so I could talk, and it's getting so hot in here. So I'm gonna turn that back on. I'm gonna start my little reread through the spreadsheet that I printed out, and we're gonna get to jotting some notes down and hopefully figuring out how I need to fix this mess of a book. Hot. We are back. I actually don't know how long it's been. I meant to check that. Okay, it's been about an hour. Got a pretty significant amount of progress, I feel. I don't know if I've said it in this video yet, but if I haven't, when I started writing this book originally, I was very into the Save the Cat writes a novel 15 beats, and I followed them to a T, pretty much. Or I tried to follow them to a T. That was the first time I wrote the book. I was actually watching one of my old videos on YouTube. I went to my channel for something. I think I was making like a community post. I went to my videos and I sorted them by oldest. Like, what's the earliest thing I decided to keep? And they were, I think it was Camp NaNoWriMo vlogs. They might have been NaNoWriMo vlogs, but I think they were camp. It was right at the beginning of COVID. The video, the video I watched was me trying to finish my book. I don't know if it was finish the book. It might have just been like finish a certain portion of the book in the unexpected week we had off in March because of the beginning of the pandemic. You know, like that place before there were like global shutdowns where, I mean, at least in the US, I don't know where else, but in the US, it was states that were like, okay, at that time, it was individual schools that were saying, okay, we're gonna lay off for a week, see what happens. Like, we don't want to bring all these kids into school. It goes by district. I went to a charter school, so we weren't controlled by the district. But yeah, I remember the public schools were deciding not to go back for a week, and I was like, I really hope we don't have to go back. And we got a week off too. Stellar was writing like crazy. And I said in that vlog, I want to finish whatever I wanted to finish in that week, or I'll finish it next week if we get next week off too. Little did I know at that time, little baby 15-year-old me, that I wouldn't be going back to school for at least a year. Which, all of that to say, in that video as well, where I talked about like, oh, if we get an extra week, I'm gonna use it to write, I was talking about the beat sheet as well. I think it was the first time I actually like sat down and started using it, because I had found a PDF that sort of gave like a basic rundown of what the beats were. And that was the PDF that I used for like all of 2020. I used to swear up and down by the beat sheet. Not to say that the beat sheet isn't good or like that I don't like it anymore. It's just that I don't follow it as strictly. And Project What has very much seen my evolution in outlining, where the original base plot, what I wanted the story to be originally, is very 15 beats. And then as I sort of grew, I've written a few more novels, I've kind of understood the story creation process a little bit more. I started leaning less on the beat sheet. I still use like basic points like the catalyst, the midpoint, the bad guys close in, that kind of stuff. But I didn't follow it as strictly as I used to. So Project What began to span out. It began to take on a bit of its own shape outside of the 15 beats. And it's kind of gotten a little unruly, as in there's no real defined midpoint. I really need that midpoint as like an anchor piece. It's like, it's the defining thing between what they thought they were fighting towards and what they really need to fight towards. And I never really had like a definite, yeah, this is in the middle of the story, first and foremost, and this is the switch. I've been using this one scene or set of scenes as the midpoint this whole time, but it's kind of been don't mind the pen on my hand. It's kind of been scooted towards the end of Act 2, or like closer to the end of Act 2, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all, and I need to move it back to actually being in the middle of the story. Additionally, I also want to add the 2 pinches in Act 2. I think it might be more of like a screenwriting thing. I have only really heard it in screenwriting videos. Pinches are little twists within Act 2 that move the story along. There's one at the 1/3 point, and then there's one at the 2/3 point. So the act is sort of split into 4 pieces, where it's like before the first pinch, between the pinch and the midpoint, and then between the midpoint and the second pinch, and then the second pinch to the end of Act 2. And as I was revising, I noticed that this story could really benefit from that. So the main idea in the replot here has been to conform the story that I have around these 2 pinches and this midpoint. Here's my little diagram. Here's pinch 1, here's the midpoint, here's the second pinch. I was trying to roughly fill in the scenes that I already have around this to make it hit more. And I think it does, and I think it does. I feel like it really builds up to this point to see like, oh, the island is like slipping away, we're running out of time, we're running out of chances. You can actually see it this time, which is amazing. That was the main idea. That was the main thing I wanted to figure out. This is only for one main character. This is for the main character and what she goes through. I still need to fit the other 2 characters around this. Some of these things they do experience, some of them they do not, but this is the spine. We've made the spine of the plot. Now I can build everything else out, and feeling good for sure. It's definitely more character driven, because before it kind of felt like the plot points were just being handed to the characters, and the characters were just doing what they needed because they needed to do it. It wasn't really like ingrained in the world. It just felt like, oh yeah, they're the main characters, they're doing main character things, of course. But I feel like now it feels more like, no, they're in control of the story. They're the ones that are making these decisions and driving the story forward. So that's also great. But anyways, my camera's about to die, so I'm gonna get back to work. I think I need to work on the other 2 main characters and what they're actually doing in the story, because a lot of that, unfortunately, is not gonna stay. I don't like it. There's a couple things that do need to stay. Maybe I'll just add to it, because it's so boring and like surface level right now. But if I can add to the physical journey they go on, like throughout the island, that would be perfect, because I really need them to stay on that path, physical like traveling path, not their arcs so much. I don't know, I'll have to figure it out. I'll see you once I figure something out. Okay, I just put everything down that I know so far. Let me walk you through this real quick. First, this is the POV we are in, or it's 3rd person, but it's like this is the character we're seeing. As you can see, it's overwhelmingly one character. And then these are the scene descriptions right here. Anything in red is something that needs to be split into multiple scenes. It's not multiple scenes yet. It's just an event that happens. Those need to be worked on. These are changes to scenes that already exist, things to alleviate all those problems I was talking about earlier. Nice. And then here is just reference for me when I need to go rewrite the scene or work on the scene. It's just page numbers, or if it's new or kinda new. This is especially helpful because I did move around so many scenes, so these are not in order anymore. This is everything that I figured out here in this little diagram, this little chart. I don't know what to call this, but that is everything I figured out here. That is the skeleton outline that I will now be padding out with all the other things that occur in this book. I will be adding more titles at the top here, just to keep track of everything. I'm very excited to see what this ends up looking like. I'm going to start by working on the other two main characters' arc and their subplot in the book, because that is very important and it also needs a lot of help. So let's do it. Okay, hello! It is another day and another victory for your G's, hopefully. I'm hoping. It is another day though. The next day, in fact, it is 3:15 p.m. I just got off work, and today is the last day I want to work on Project What? The reworking of Project What, not the entire thing. I'm saying that so I really push today, and then tomorrow, Friday, the last day I can physically work on reworking before I need to start rewriting, I can just like sort of scramble and finish everything else. So I'm telling myself that today is my cutoff date. There's still a lot of work to be done with this book. So that's gonna be a lot of work, which means I need to lock in, which means it's time to use the kitchen table. But as you can probably see in the foreground of this shot, it's very messy. So first we gotta do a little bit of cleanup, and then we can get to work. All right, here is the setup. I brought my little like sitting like bed desk. It's not propped up, just so I can have the like leaning factor, I guess, where I have the typed up scene list of Act 2 and Act 3. Very cute. I have my basic brainstorming for what I want to change the rest of the book into. Love that. Coffee, love that. The stuff I typed up yesterday, amazing. Extra paper for brainstorming, because I need blank paper to brainstorm. And draft 3, just in case. I don't know if I'll actually need it, but it's here. Also, yes, I am missing a whole nail. And this one fell off too. I'm getting them done soon, I promise. But don't worry about it. We are going to get started on figuring out the other two main characters' subplot while my main character is doing her own thing. It has been about an hour, and I have found my footing. I have figured out what I need to add to the book. A good amount of what I already have is going to stay, which is nice. It'll just have to be moved around to fit the new midpoint and pinches that I was talking about, but those scenes can stay in the book. There is just a couple things that need to be added to really emphasize what's happening in the book and show that what is happening is having an island-wide consequence or reaction. It's not just isolated to the characters and what they learn, it's also having an effect on what is happening in their lives. So that's great. It took 3 sheets of paper. Let's go through them. First of all was the most basic, this is what I'm working with, sheet. This is so vague. When I finished writing this one down, I didn't think I was gonna make it, frankly. I was like, I don't even know where to start with this. But I wrote down the available scenes, the ones that are already in the book, that I want to keep in the book and that I want to work around, essentially. And then down here was everything I want to see in these scenes, the things that we need to show, most of which is showing how the island is reacting to the things that are happening in the book. Not just like emotionally, but also like what's physically happening to the island and how is it changing. And then also the two characters are beginning to lose faith in who they thought was going to be like the savior of the island, who was going to really help them. So those are the two things that we really need to see. Also working on their character arc, but that will come later. So that was my very basic, like these are the goals for today. And then I got my second piece of paper and I was like, okay, it's time to narrow this down. It's time to actually figure out what I want. Here is that one. As you can see, basic ideas right in the middle. This was very slow going at the beginning, I will be honest with you. This was just grasping at straws in the beginning. I was like, they need to be more involved in the story and they need to be more involved in the island, because these two characters are supposed to be the people that represent the island. They are the connecting point between everyone else on the island and the people in power that are making these changes. They're sort of like, yeah, that connecting piece that like can get the island's voice heard. I was like, how do they become these representatives? I mean, I know that where they get their fame or where they get their start, but it's like throughout the book, how do they become like more ingrained in that idea? So I was just sitting here for a little bit, like just like staring at the wall, trying to come up with something. And I finally found something that I was like, okay, this could be really good, because it would really cement the idea that they had a lot of faith in this guy, and they thought he was gonna change the world, or you know, change the island, but change the world. And they're like, we're gonna help. We're gonna do what we can to help this guy, because everyone else who was supposed to help him are not there anymore. We'll leave it at that. So they're like, we're next to all he has left, so we're gonna help. So they really dive head first into this whole like, we think he's gonna save us thing, which will help with their arc throughout Act 2, where they're like, I don't know if this guy has our best interest in mind. So that's where I started. I started up here, and then I kind of like looped around and I came back over here. There was also this piece that I found during revision that feels pretty insignificant in the book at the moment. It was just kind of like a little note. It comes back in book 2, also slightly insignificant, but it does come back. And I was like, I want to do something more with this. I feel like this should have substance, significance to whatever happens to this. It's a collection of items. It's a collection of items that shows up on campus, and they're like, what? I just wrote it in as like a thing for the two other main characters besides my main character to do, like to interact with while my main character was gone. Just, you know, something to keep themselves busy with. But as I was revising, I was like, this should have a lot more stake in the story than it does, or it shouldn't be here. Like, if I do keep it the way it was, it just wasn't going to make sense. It just wasn't going to be good. So I was like, I either need to get rid of this entirely, or I need to make it a bigger part of the story. And I ultimately ended up making it a bigger part of the story. The way I kind of tied it in, which will be in the third sheet of paper, and we'll get there, once again reinforces those two things that I want to hit in their little subplot. So I was like, okay, we're keeping this little collection, we're keeping this little slight mystery, which is great. There's a part of it that I want to introduce in book 2 as well. Maybe book 2 or book 3, I'm not actually sure. But there is this little thing that I want to introduce in those books, one of them. That wouldn't be possible if I did get rid of this part of the book, so now I get to keep that as well. And that is only one part of the subplot that I kind of figured out. There's a second part where they actually go out on the island, they see what's happening all around, and they sort of begin to realize like a lot of these solutions aren't really solutions. They're more like instant gratification solutions. So there's gonna be a little bit of that as well, but yeah, all of that I spat out here. For a decent portion of Act 2, probably like the first third, there is 2 distinct subplots within the book that the 2 other main characters follow. And that is where the third sheet comes in. Wow, as you can see, it is split in half. And this is really just breaking down what I want these 2 subplots to be about. There's no actual scenes in this yet, except for one. up here. Very vague, but I did find the two subplots that need to happen for these two characters in Act 2, before the midpoint. I haven't figured out after the midpoint yet, but I'm not gonna worry about that yet. I'm feeling great about even figuring this out, so don't hit me up. But we're gonna start with this. We're gonna start with the pre-midpoint plot that I've come up with, and we're gonna add that to the spreadsheet that I started a couple days ago, and hopefully see this part of the book, the pre-midpoint, sort of start to come together. Hey, hello. It's been another, oh man, probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I took a little break to eat a little bit, which didn't really help because I'm like starving and I'm gonna make more food after this. I spent probably the last hour working on this outline. Whew, it was a struggle. Not gonna lie, I think it's just because of the format, it being in like a spreadsheet instead of on cards. But I also think it helped in this part of the outlining process because the two other main characters that I needed to add into this, I didn't actually have scenes and events that they were going to do in the book. Like, I knew what I wanted to happen ultimately, but I didn't know how they were gonna get there or like what steps were gonna happen. So I think having all the rest of the story just out in front of me, the other framework that I have, kind of helped figure out what I actually want to happen in the scenes. So that was nice. That was nice. I feel like it helped me make sure I didn't just make random scenes for no reason. I will have to go through these a little bit and put in more like character detail, character motivation detail, but I think what I have works for like what we actually see on the page. That being said, it took me that long to plot up to the midpoint. I felt like I was cramming too much stuff in before the midpoint, and I was like, this is gonna be way too much. This is gonna be way too big, but the events that I still needed to add to the timeline or to the outline were very important. I needed these scenes. And then I finally realized, I was like, I'll just put this set of scenes. These ones can happen after the midpoint. These ones can occur later. And that helped a bunch, but I was so stuck on those, like, I think it's like 2 or 3 scenes and trying to get them into the book. I will definitely have to give the pre-midpoint outline another reread just to make sure it's not too congested. But I also found that scene-wise, scene number-wise, I'm pretty well paced between like the pinches and the midpoint. Well, the first pinch and the midpoint. There are 41 scenes before the midpoint begins. And the midpoint's gonna probably be like 3 or 4 scenes. But there are 41 scenes before the midpoint. And the first pinch, at least in the scene list that I have now, I might combine or divide scenes into like different snippets, but like plot points. Yeah, plot points. Of them, the first pinch is the 24th plot point that we see. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good to be like splitting it into 4 pieces. I'll try to make the scene count from the last midpoint scene to the second pinch also around 25 scenes to make sure I'm pacing everything correctly, but I checked that just before turning on the camera. I was like, let me make sure I have like the right amount of content between each major plot point. And that's pretty close, that's pretty good. It is 1 in the morning, 1:09 to be exact, and about 20 minutes ago, I finished Act 2. I definitely need to go through and make the Google Doc, like, bullet point version of this outline, because while this is, like, a good guide, it definitely doesn't have everything that I need it to have. We have, like, draft 1 of this outline. It's probably, like, draft 3. of this outline, with how many passes I've gone through already. Feeling much better about this, like just based off of like what I can see in my head, like reading through the entire thing, like the little like mini movie of the project. It feels more solid now, which is wonderful. And I was looking at the scene list for Act 2 from just what I copied down from draft 3, and that ended up being 78 points, 78 scenes. These ones were actual scenes. And this version has come out to be 77 scenes. So one off, 77 scenes. They're more like plot points that are probably going to be scenes. I'm not entirely sure yet. I really leave that allocation, I guess, for when I'm like about to draft those points, depending on however the scenes before it went. I can look at that plot point and be like, okay, do we want to see this from multiple point of views? Does it need to be split? Like, what's going on? So I don't actually know how many scenes this is going to be. 77 major points that needed to be distinguished from one another have been created for Act 2 this time around. Pacing wise, I think it's holding up, kind of. This feels so much better though. So much better. I guess tomorrow I'll have to do Act 3. I'll have to do Act 3 and actually write up the outline. That being said, I think I'm gonna start Act 3 before I go to sleep. Is that a bad idea? Maybe. But I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try it. This one has quite a bit of change. The beats are gonna stay similar, as in like we go from here to here and here to here, or, you know, but how we get from beat to beat is definitely going to be changing. So the big thing for this act is to make sure I have those details in what's being changed. And then the climax of the book. I suck at writing climaxes. I've talked about this before. The climax of the book kind of sucks. It's a little vague. It just kind of like doesn't feel like the main characters have really thought of anything substantial, because I didn't think of anything substantial. It's my fault that they look unprepared. They shouldn't be unprepared. They, in a sense, know what they're doing. Well, they have an intention of what they want to do, and then it kind of gets derailed, you know. But in draft 3, they don't even have that like initial plan. So I really need to show that they have a plan. They have an idea that ultimately gets derailed, but they need to have an idea of what they want to do. So adding in that detail and fixing the climax. Yeah, we're gonna see how much of it I can get done right now before I am too tired to think. And then I will see you guys tomorrow, ultimately, hopefully, for the end of this video. And I will have a completed outline for draft 4. That's scary. Draft 4. Who am I? Who am I? It hasn't even been 15 minutes. Maybe not even 10, I'm not sure. I just came up with the, what seems like right now, the easiest way to turn this huge plot point at the beginning of Act 3 into something that is completely rearranged in who controls the scene from one decision that my main character makes at the end of Act 2. Before, it was kind of like a surprise. It was supposed to be like just like a little twist that like brings us into Act 3, and it kind of throws my main character for a loop. But like she gets her bearings, she owns it. Love her for that. And I want the scene. I've always wanted to keep the scene. It's really important, but it just never felt warranted. It felt like an easy way out for my main character at this point. And I was just sitting here thinking, because in order to keep the scene, I had a lot of questions I needed to answer. And I was sitting here trying to answer those questions, trying to figure out, okay, why would this happen if my main character wasn't the one to initiate it? Why would someone else give her this upper hand? Especially someone who doesn't want to give her this upper hand at all. This is supposed to be like her lowest of low, or like that's what the other character is trying. Why would they give this opportunity to her, this super like easy opportunity? And then I realized they don't have to give it to her. They don't have to give it to her at all. She can demand it. She can realize that the only way to get out of this situation is to force everyone around her into chaos and slip away. So I completely flipped this scene on its head and made it to where my main character makes this happen. It's not just something that she's getting thrown into and she has to like find her way through this. It's a definite decision she makes and she makes it happen. It's the simplest revision I've ever made. It was just, oh, what about she plans this? She wants this to happen. That was all I had to switch, and it makes this all make sense. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. How did I not think of that until just now? We're 4 drafts into this stupid book. Oh my god. I do have to figure out why the other character, the one that used to be in control of this scene, why they would agree to this. I might have to move it around a little bit where it's like that character isn't present, it's a different character. Once I can get over that hurdle, a much smaller hurdle than the ones I was trying to jump earlier, we will be good. Anyways, I've typed up 6 scenes so far in Act 3. So that's great. I'm gonna push a little bit more. It is 1:48 in the morning though, so I'm gonna wrap up probably at 2. Go to sleep because I need to be up for work tomorrow. At this rate, I'm not gonna be up for work tomorrow, so let's just do a little bit more work. All right, we are here for the real last day of the rework, the replot. Yes, telling myself that yesterday was the last day definitely helped because I got a huge chunk of this reoutlining done, and I've gotten maybe the first third maybe of Act 3 outlined as well. So that's awesome. The agenda today is to finish Act 3 in the spreadsheet, and then I need to type up Act 2 and Act 3 in their entirety on Google Docs with all the appropriate details to make sure I'm not forgetting anything and that draft 4 won't become a chaotic mess as I continue to write it. Let's do this. There's literally just the climax and the resolution left in the outline that I need to put down, pretty much. A little bit of setup, a little bit of stuff that needs to, like, we're ramping up to the end of the book, but it's pretty much just the climax and the resolution. And minus literally what happens in the climax, the rest of Act 3 is pretty much staying the same. So shouldn't be too bad, but I do need to put in the setup that I haven't yet and actually figure out what's happening in the climax. Let's do this. Okay, Act 3 is all typed out. We're done. I think I fixed the climax of the book where, like, it seems like everything's going well and like we're gonna win, it's gonna be awesome, and then a wrench just gets thrown into everything. I think that's good. I mean, once I start typing it up on the Google Doc, I'll get another run through of everything, so that'll be helpful. But it has ended at 29 well, 29-ish scenes. There's a couple things that do get split into multiple scenes, but 29 plot points. I need to just start calling them plot points. That's what they are. With the heavy emphasis on they're probably going to be a scene. Act 3 originally, the scene list was 25, so a little bit more detail, which is nice. Act 3 has always been very tiny in this book, and I feel like it does need a little bit of help. It doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to be as big as like Act 1 is, because Act 1 is huge. Don't even want to talk about that. But it just felt a little off balance being so short. So this is hopefully going to make it a good deal longer. But I'm going to take a little break here to eat dinner because I'm hungry. And then we're going to go back to the desk because I do need to have 2 screens to actually look at the spreadsheet and type up the outline at the same time. I'm not going to be flipping back and forth. That sounds like a nightmare. I might go out to get coffee as well. Kind of feeling like I should go get some coffee. I don't know. I don't know, because I can always make something here, but at the same time, it's just more fun when you get to pay $7 for it. Hi, y'all. It's 1:40 in the morning, in the AM morning o'clock. Yeah, I'm losing it. And I just finished the outline for Act 2. I'm sick. I'm sick of myself. I literally just finished putting all that down in the Google Doc with all the extra details that I need, all the extra timeline stuff. Actually, I just realized I do need to go back through here and make sure the ending timeline is okay. Now, everything I just said is in the Google Doc for Act 2. For Act 2. Final word count for the Act 2 outline is 6,058 words. Jesus Christ. That is insane. I'll be the first to say it. That's crazy. What am I doing? So Act 2 is ready. Act 2 is ready to be drafted. This was a very good exercise in outlining and like being able to see the whole act come together, because I've literally, well, not exactly, but I've pretty much been sitting here this whole time working on this outline since like 5 p.m. maybe. So it's been a while. I did take some breaks to eat, to talk to a friend and everything, so it wasn't like I was sitting here for the last 7-8 hours just locked in on this. There were definitely some times where I wasn't, but being able to get the whole outline down in one go and see the story progress, obviously not through prose, but being able to see the points that we hit and getting that to come all together at one time, I think was very helpful. There was a couple scenes that I did end up cutting because I just didn't need them anymore. And there were some like plot epiphanies that came up while I was writing this, especially during the midpoint, where we kind of see all of this stuff come together to ultimately, like, it comes together to make the goals fall apart, where everyone sort of sees how their plots, their arcs connect, and how they connect for the worst, and how everyone has to like sort of reevaluate and be like, oh, we're not doing too hot. That was definitely good. That was some good stuff. There were a couple of things I had to like backtrack, add some little things that I had to sneak in order to make certain things work later on, but Act 2 is very cohesive now. I feel like it makes like actual sense. Like when I was piecing together Act 2 in the spreadsheet, I was nervous. I was like, does this even work? Am I just yapping? But going through everything and retyping it to make it like look nice and sound better confirmed that, okay, it does actually work and it will follow a good plot as a story. I still have Act 3 to finish. Act 3 is much shorter than Act 2. It's like a little less than half of the size of Act 2 plot-wise, like plot points. But I am so tired right now. I fear I might just have to add the Act 3 outline to my 10K day tomorrow. It definitely won't fill the entire 10K, so I'll do outlining for the first part, and then I'll actually get to drafting for the second part. That's just what's gonna have to happen. I will come back tomorrow to do my final conclusions for this video because I'm a little brain dead at the moment. I don't know if you can tell. I feel like I'm talking slower because like words aren't coming out. But that's what working on an outline for roughly 8 hours straight does to you. Okay, I strictly think in Project What right now. That's all I'm thinking about. All I know are these characters and this world and this island and this group that they're fighting against. That's all that's up here right now. Whew. It is a great feeling though. I do love stepping away from working on a project and feeling like you've been like yanked out of the world and it just feels like wrong. It's like when you step out of a movie and like you feel like altered because you just spent the last 2.5 hours immersed in this whole new world. That's what it feels like, stepping away from the outline after finishing Act 2. It's just like, whoa, I forgot I'm a person and not just like an omnipotent author that is controlling these people's world. But that is the end of the actual outlining for this video, because I will be doing Act 3 in the 10K day, so that will be in the 10K day vlog. Look out for that. But whew, what a day. What a day. Alright, that is the end of this video. Originally, I was going to add the 10K day to the end of this vlog, have it all come together, but as you can tell, this video's already long enough. So I did end up actually splitting it into 2 videos just to save my computer and your audience retention. So look out for that soon. It'll be out soon, I promise. But I am filming this way after the fact, and I am fairly deep into actually drafting Act 2. So more videos about Project What will be out in the future, all about the rest of this draft, so stay tuned. But as a little sneak peek, here is the outline. As you can see, it's already been well loved, but here it is. Here it is. I was holding it upside down. Here it is. It ended up being just under 12 pages long, so that's great. But I am having a blast drafting this right now. I feel so much more confident in this outline. It feels so much more legit and real than any other outline I've made for this book before. But I will not talk any further because I do have more in the 10K vlog. So in fear of repeating myself, I will stop here. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know how your writing is going. Let me know how the summer retreat is going. Hopefully well. You guys are seeing this on the 1st of August, which is the beginning of the last month of the retreat. So we're almost done, which is kind of sad. I'm kind of sad about that, but we're gonna make it a good month for sure. But anyways, let me know anything and everything in the comments. Hope to see you in the next one. Peace.